Ready to go? Are y'all ready to go? That's the thing. That's the thing. So, well, thank you guys for sticking with it. I mean, ultimately, you guys are the ones that held strong. So, my name is Kevin Knowlton. I'm the Director of Academic Outreach for the Cyber Innovation Center, which is headquartered in a small town, impactful town of Bossier City, Louisiana, which is in the northern part of the state. Really just wanted to kick this session off with just kind of laying some wow factors that our country, our nation, and we as professionals face. There are over 370,000 cybersecurity jobs available today. And ultimately, we don't have a workforce to fill it. So we're all left scratching our heads going, what in the world are we going to do it? And the reason and the ultimate purpose we are here today is really to make that emphasis on education, on K-12 education, and how cybersecurity plays an important role in making sure we have that workforce that is in position to ready to fill those jobs. We like to call cybersecurity like a well-written essay. Before we can ever expect a student to write that well-written essay, we've got to teach them the alphabet. And so there's a lot of efforts that are going on, not only at the collegiate level, but at the high school level, at the middle school level, and even at the elementary school level. And that's where that introduction is. And in addition, taking a more broad approach to cyber, how are we integrating the STEM, the liberal arts, the societal, and the technology? How are we taking those four pillars and building a model, building an educational model that targets those cybersecurity efforts? So, with that being said, I just want to tee up our panelists to talk about all of their efforts going on in cybersecurity, what they do, what their needs are, and anything else that they would like to share. So I don't know who wants to start, but maybe we'll go down the road, make some introductions, and then rock, paper, scissors for whoever starts first. So we'll start down with the introductions.
My name is Jim Kriegel. I work with Skills USA on their championships. We have approximately 100 different events that we run nationally. So by the time they get from local, state to the nationals, we've run over 1,000 events in a year.
I'm Carla Bolton. I work with Future Business Leaders of America as the Education Director, and similarly, I work with our competitive events sector, and we have, between our collegiate and high school division, we have about 120 competitive events that go through state competition. In our high school division, many of them go through district and state competition. So 3 levels of competition before they ever walk across the stage.
My name is Paula Shelton, and I'm with the Johns Hopkins University Applied Physics Laboratory. We have the Merlin Mesa program, Mathematics, Engineering, Science Achievement, which is 40 years old. We are primarily serving Central Maryland. We have over 2,500 kids. We introduce computer science in grades 3 and 4, and the students go through grades 12. And we collect their grades and monitor their grades in math, science, language arts, and their levels. Our primary focus is to develop a future workforce. We are particularly interested in developing a workforce that is U.S. citizens.
I'm Larry Teever-Ball. I'm a founder of a couple of companies. One of those is CareerSafe Online. Today I'm actually representing the Skills USA Foundation. Tim Lawrence asked a couple of the foundation members of the representative companies to take a look at what Skills USA should be doing in terms of a cyber contest. And I'm here today investigating, researching, taking copious notes, and I'm at that particular point that every researcher gets to, that the more you know, the less that you really understand. So that's where I am today.
Hi, I'm Kirk Lawson. I'm Executive Director of Business Professionals of America, another of the CTSOs. We have three of us here today. We are the smallest of the CTSOs. We are headquartered in the middle, which is Columbus, Ohio, as opposed to out here in Virginia for the most part. We have a fairly robust IT strand even though our name is Business Professionals of America, really for the purposes of this, I'm dealing primarily with about 18 or 19 competitions per year that go down into the middle level and all the way up into the post-secondary level. If you added them all up, I suppose there'd be 60 because we have about the same number middle, secondary, post-secondary. But we like to think of our approach as starting with that base level foundation and then building up from there into things that are a little bit higher stakes. And certainly by the time you start talking about cybersecurity, the stakes are very high.
Thanks for sticking around.
Yeah.
Very much
My
so.
name is Gail Drake, and the role that I've been asked to play at this moment is the coach of a FIRST robotics teams. So I coach the FRC teams, which are 5-foot teams, the FTC teams, which are 2-foot teams, and then I'm also the regional tournament director for the 5-foot, the FRC, the 2-foot, the FTC, and the FLL environment. And I was asked to kind of roll robotics into how that can spearhead and inspire some people into cybersecurity. And then I also coach as many teams as we could possibly create in Cyber Patriot. And it's nice to be able to have the high school teacher licensure and then also be a college professor, because it gives me the ability to train the trainer and certify training the trainer, so that I can take the professorship role and teach high school teachers to teach it and give them the certification that they can, and play the two sides of that. So it's a nice advantage to be able to have that kind of all wrapped into one environment.
Well, definitely. So you guys can see the diversity that we have on this panel and the different programs that are offered. So if we could each maybe take 5 minutes to each share what your program is, what you're doing, some of the outcomes that you've experienced, and then who you're targeting within those programs as well.
I guess it defaults to me again.
There you go, Jim.
Well, we just started the middle school this year. We target where most of our membership is the high school, and of course we have the college post-secondaries. Our program is in the high school. It's not an associated after-school program. It's integral to the classroom because not only do the students learn their trade or what they expect or need to know whenever they go out, we also provide information for the teacher to teach the soft skills. You would be surprised whenever I go out and I talk to companies or to contractors and say, do you know where your next employee's coming from? They have no idea. They're just happy that they can get someone, and they keep saying, the turnover is so bad, the turnover is so bad, they can't keep them. And I ask them why. The millennials just do not know the value of showing up to work. They won't show up on time. They can't get along with the person that's working next to them. Am I wrong? Do we all not hear the same thing? And so we've developed this, of course, leadership programs that teach those soft skills so that whenever the student graduates, they're actually better rounded. Most companies just love it whenever they hear Skills USA or any of the CTSOs for sure. If a CTSO student comes in and they can put that CTSO on their resume, which they should be doing, employers just love it, and they will get usually past the first couple rounds of interviews. So our competitions are based on almost all of the different trade organizations. We go across all the STEM, the 16 STEM clusters. So our background is a little bit of everything. And the reason that I'm here is because we've been looking at cybersecurity. We already run about 6 or 7 computer contests, but this is something that is definitely needs to be developed more and brought out to our people in the field.
Well, at FBLA, we have 36 events that are specific to information technology for our high school students and 17 that we have identified as STEM specific. And we like to focus on those. I'm a techie by nature from when I came up through the classroom. But we do have a specific event for purposes of this conference that is cybersecurity. And it has been around for about 6 years now, and we're always looking to make sure that our competencies are matching what is right in the world now with the cybersecurity needs and what the businesses are needing. But we're also always looking to develop those events and making sure that we're meeting the needs, because I would agree that our CTSOs, all of us and all of them, provide great wealth in soft skills and practical skills that allow those students just an additional benefit for walking into that job interview and giving them a leg up of getting that job, which is what it's all about.
So just to give you a little background, so APL, the Hopkins Applied Physics Lab, is a Department of Defense contractors for Johns Hopkins University. We are also the Naval Research Center. And so we actually have our engineers design our challenges. So to walk you through, the elementary school students are doing Scratch. The elementary school students are doing Scratch. And they're using the Pico board, so it combines computer science. They're designing a game that's centered around a cyber theme. Middle school students are designing a 3-level game using Alice, and again, it's centered around a cyber theme. The high school students are doing Python, and they're given algorithms that they have to solve to get through the maze. And the barriers in the maze are things that represent viruses, things that you would run into in a networking situation. And so they are doing this in an after-school program. We provide the materials, we provide the mentoring with the engineers from the lab, and as well as partnering with other industries, because we're not just preparing them for APL, we're preparing them to fill all the jobs, especially in America. And so that's what we're looking at. And like I said, we are in the 8 school districts. We ask the students to meet once a week for an hour. They generally meet every day, or, we don't have a problem with the recruiting issue. If anything, we have a problem with the limitations. We are subsidized by the state for the program, but APL does absorb all administrative costs. So everyone who's running the program is a full APL employee and generally has the required background for those positions. Oh, and then we do have a competition every May. So the activity has a performance piece, a communications piece, a written piece. Our students are required to write technical papers even at the elementary school level. They're learning how to distinguish between a general research paper, a technical paper, and they also are required to do the presentation, and every member of the team has to present.
Okay. Well, let me, I guess to help maybe explain why I'm here. The 2 companies I have, one is a defense contracting company, actually a DHS company as well. We also run the cybersecurity training program for the Department of Education for other contractors. And so on the one side, on that company, we hire a lot of IA professionals that are both here in the DC area and actually in our other offices that we have. The second company, Career Safe Online, for about 13 years now, we've been involved in outreach, Department of Labor, OSHA type of training in high schools. Last year, we launched a cyber safety program in the high schools primarily. And I just want to give you just a little bit of the feedback. This is about 10,000 kids so far. So a couple of things that we found out, and there's 4 topics that we cover inside that. One is cyberbullying, the second one is sexting, third one is texting and driving, and the fourth one is really privacy-related issues in terms of young people understanding about privacy and the things they can do. And this is 9,300 plus kids that have completed so far. There's a 25-question survey at the end of the course that we take. 23% report that they've been cyberbullied at some point. 14% report they've been cyberbullied in the last year. 27% report that they were upset by the cyberbullying. 7% report that they just learned to deal with it. 47% of the kids report that they've observed cyberbullying of other kids in the high school. 55% report their peers being cyberbullied in the past year. 26% of the students said that they would or have actually reported cyberbullying either to a guardian, a parent, or their teachers. 50% of the kids said that they're not aware if their school has a policy against cyberbullying. And just a couple other things here. 41% of the kids have said they have received an inappropriate text or visual image. 36% have actually shared a text image with another student. 25% report that students frequently engage in sexting at their schools. And 48% do not know how often it actually occurs. Another couple of things here just very quickly. Let's see. Let's talk about the texting and driving. 47% of the kids report that they ride with someone who texts and drives. 16% report that they frequently actually text and drive. And 82% of the respondents report they never text and drive. And then 18% said that they do. So those are just 3 of the areas there, and we do look at malware and a few other things. Well, the reason that these are relevant, those 2 areas is, Tim Lawrence, the Executive Director of Skills USA, I'm on the foundation, our meeting is here at the end of the month, and several of the companies on the foundation that support Skills USA are very interested in this arena from 2 standpoints on it. One, keep young people safe when they're online, period. And let's just make sure they're safe. The second part of that, though, is to prepare young people for good paying careers and jobs. And one of the things that I've observed over the last few years, and I made a comment in an earlier session today, when we look at safety, we consider that to be a life skill. And I really believe we have to start to look at cyber safety or cybersecurity as a life skill. It's not something that's just a curriculum here, it's not just a profession, it really cuts across everything we do in life. One of my examples is, how many of you here have kids? All of us have been a kid, or I put it that way. Do you remember when we were growing up? Don't touch that, put down that, that's gonna bite you, don't pull in the dog's tail. That same type of thing, it's safety as a life skill. Our parents were trying to teach us and the adults around us that if you do those kind of things, you're gonna get harmed. We need to look at cybersecurity the same way. It's the same type of life skill. And so from the very beginning, and I've been through airports where I've seen kids in strollers with an iPad. I sat next to an attorney on a plane talking about how her mother got in trouble because her mother gave her 2 twin daughters an iPad and the kids found themselves on inappropriate websites. And they were young, they were 4 years old. So this is something that has to start early. So let's go back to the content here. So somewhere between this whole thing about whether you could call it cyber hygiene or cyber safety and preparing young people for careers, there's a whole set of life skills that need to be put together. And what we're looking at in the Skills USA Foundation is, where are the gaps? And part of what I'm doing is we put together, I have a team of people that have been assessing all the curriculums and all the contests out there, so we can look for where are there gaps, because we don't want to reinvent the wheel. And we've supported a BLA and Cyber Patriots in the past, our company has, and those, and we're looking at other curriculums, but where is there a potential gap that makes sense for Skills USA? If we look at the Internet of Everything, all of the careers that Jim talked about, if you go to your house, your HVAC system is connected to the Internet now, your security system is connected there, your home entertainment system is connected there, your appliances are, your toys are, your automobiles are now, your cars. So think about all those professions. I'm an auto mechanic, I'm an HVAC technician, I'm an electrician. If I'm a home builder, I'm building these things into the home. I have to wire the house and have to do it securely. If I'm any kind of technical career, now cybersecurity is an element of that. And so what we're looking for is what kind of contest and what kind of curriculums would be appropriate then for for this ever-changing world that we find ourselves in. So that was the challenge that was given to me. We're working with several of the companies on the foundation to put something together, and that's my report today.
Wow.
And you get to follow him.
Yeah, that's something. I'm taller though.
And he's better looking
And I
too,
got
so that,
more hair.
it
He's
all
got the
works
purple
out.
shirt on.
It all works out.
I kind of feel bad because the CTSOs kind of have, we all have the same story. And there's 3 of us in the room. Don't really need to bore you with that. The way we approach our IT strand is we start very simply. We do conceptually information technology. We do computer literacy at the younger ages to get them familiar with what is technology. And it's amazing the number of folks that don't know what that really means. We get into a lot of programming languages, and then as they progress, then we put them in the programming languages to work. As the other CTSOs, we are embedded into the curriculum. But what happens with our programs is it's just a way for the students to apply what they're learning academically in the classroom. It's a real nice way to give them a reason to say, hey, I actually learned something and I did something with it, instead of a philosophy course where they're still wondering what's going on. Probably the most interesting thing I have to say about what I've experienced today maybe doesn't have a whole lot to do with cybersecurity as much, but this is now the 3rd time in about 6 weeks I've been with an industry group that is dealing with these same questions. All these jobs that are out there, no skilled labor, the time is now, but we got to build the pipeline. And it's fascinating to me that the insurance industry, for some reason they asked me to come and be a part of an investigation.
I tapped into AARP. I invited them, the local chapters. That's how I got the funding for the first year, until I could get industries to start. This was before I was a teacher before I took this position. So
That's good to know.
yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
And that's why I mentioned earlier that we had gone out and taught, some of this stuff to seniors, because
Yeah.
kids will
You
do
have
that as well.
Well, yeah, I had luncheons for the seniors, and they got the chance to see what the kids were doing. And so they actually helped fund the first year.
Oh, that's great to know.
That's
Thank
awesome.
you. That's awesome.
So in the back 15 minutes of this discussion, I want to open it up to any questions that you have for any one of the panelists.
Okay. First, I want to thank Skills USA, because we had a team compete this year, the first time, much more organized, second year altogether. Students had a great experience, sent a couple teams to the nationals, it was very exciting. But addressing what you're talking about with developing a cybersecurity element, one of the things I did notice that, and again, we're starting in North Carolina, there weren't a lot of categories when it came to pure IT that they could compete in at that point. I know they exist, I don't know quite, I don't lead the effort with Skills USA. But when you're talking about that, rather than creating new categories, would it be better to integrate elements of cybersecurity into all of the categories? Okay? I mean, cosmetology, automotive, whatever it is, and figure out a way to do that as part, because as you said, it's life skills. It's not esoteric, it's not out there, they're not gonna be working in some lab somewhere. This is what they're gonna be doing in every business, every operation, every time they wanna succeed, because if technology is used right, it makes them do their job better. And getting that idea across, to me, seems like a winner.
I like your idea.
I'll chime in a little bit. I mean, I completely and wholeheartedly agree. With Cyber Innovation Center, we just take like you mentioned earlier, taking that big picture approach and not really honing in on cybersecurity specifically, but how does it affect advanced math? How does it affect physics? How does it advance, courses like that? because, you know, a cosmetology student who wants to go into that field has got to learn, okay, what part of cyber is in business? What part of cybersecurity is in business?
And the better they are at it, the more likely they are to succeed.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's what it's all about.
One of the things that we're doing at Montgomery College is implementing a general security course. So it's a cybersecurity course, but we don't want to call it cybersecurity. It's something like
Security awareness maybe.
general security awareness, where it's going to be a course required everywhere as a general requirement. So nursing, math, everyone. So,
One thing that AP is doing that I really like to see is they are developing a course called cyber science, which that's a turn off in and of itself to some, but AP is really honing in on the fundamentals of computer science. So they're not taking programming and just drilling down it, but they're taking a holistic approach. And I think that's a lot of states that we're seeing from the Department of Education side are taking a note to that and going, listen, that's important. So a student, even in elementary and middle school, are getting introduced to a little bit of programming, a little bit of, you know, the fundamentals, those different pillars of computer science. And even that initiative is one that is, you know, of great note to say, okay, we're slowly moving the needle over here, but we need to move faster.
I see everybody competing right now for that, though. I just see every entity, I want this, I want this, I want this, I want this, and I see every effort going a different direction, and I'm so curious where it's gonna land.
Yeah.
To your point, in the last couple of years, some of the better presentations that we've had in entrepreneurship were very heavily peppered toward cybersecurity. You know, where's my failover site? What happens if I get hacked? What if I got an intrusion?
Right.
You know,
Incident
oh my
response.
God, somebody just got into our credit cards. How are we going to backtrack? And it was part of the presentation in their entrepreneurship event, not an IT event.
Okay.
And we are seeing that in virtually every judged event that we do, which is about half the events we do. We have professionals judging a presentation piece, and it's out there. I mean, the students are aware of it, and they know that if they don't account for it in whatever they're presenting us, that there's going to be a big hole in their ultimate score because they haven't taken into consideration the real life issues that are out there.
Where's your information?
Yep.
It's a business risk. And
So risk management.
it's risk management. It truly is risk management, and it's moved up in terms of its visibility. In fact, for a lot of companies, a year ago at a FBI InfoGuard meeting in Washington, D.C., just down the road here, the FBI was reporting, and several other folks in there, that at corporate board levels now, cyber risk has moved in front of natural disasters, such as tornadoes, floods, hurricanes, in terms of the risk of major
And cost.
corporations. And so you know, when it starts being talked at the board level, and it's something they start measuring then the corporate leadership on, you know it flows down. And it goes back to my point about, I really do see it as, it's a life skill. And to your point, several folks here talked about that, it cuts across every job. Yeah, it does need to be integrated into it. So whether there is a contest that is specific for cyber skills, which is a good thing, but your element you talked about is something that we're considering is, how do you incorporate that across all the existing curriculums to put that element in there and make it perhaps a part of every contest, not just one by itself.
Yep.
That's correct, Larry, and what you're seeing with this is the natural progression of the morphing of these contests. We used to do hands-on contests, and part of their thing was not to give us a resume. Now we require a resume from every contestant. We did not originally do an oral professional development part. Now it's part of the contest. So you're correct, that's going to move that way. And then, you know, for those that really want to get detailed into it, then you'll have a specific competition. But there will be part of that competition that touches every contest. But one thing I want to comment is somebody had asked about what's the deterrent, to these competitions. Our biggest problem, we have three. One is funding, because let's face it, a competition like Skills USA just on the national level is $700 and some thousand to put on. Our internet costs just for those contests, because they wanted, we have one contest that wants a 50 meg connection. That's outrageous, the cost. So money is one. Second is, we rely on business to tell us what are your basic entry level skills. Once they've identified those skills, that's when we go back every 2 years and rewrite our technical standards. And every CTSO rewrites their technical standards at some point because of the input that they get from business. The third problem we have, talking to a bunch of government employees, is the government. The Department of Education came out with standards that teachers are afraid to do anything anymore because they know they're going to be held accountable if they take a team to a contest and they don't win or they don't medal. Guess what? They're either gone or they don't get their increase. We've got to get away from some of those things like that.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, I just want to point out that, so our focus, so while I just mentioned the cybersecurity, we really are focused on developing the skill sets.
Right.
And so
It's all
each
part.
one, right, so each level has like 4 activities that they're doing. But based on, the way we have sort of helped minimize the cost a little bit is that, the software is free, right? It's open source, so that's what we've used. If you look at one of our activities where our middle and high school students are developing a prosthetic hand, they have to build a prosthetic hand that's able to show dexterity and in like 3 formats. It can't cost more than $45, and yet it has to function. This year, we're introducing the Arduino board, so that is really where the most cost will go. But the students have now, we're attracting more females this way, and the students, we have now partnered with LIMS International, so the students are able to learn more about prosthetics, and also able to now have a service component where they are able to purchase limbs for people in other countries. So it really is, a skill set that we're developing all the way through. We know that what we're seeing today in cybersecurity or anything is not going to be here tomorrow. But the basic skill sets and the ability to change and the ability to be prepared for the rigors at the 2 or 4 year institution level, because you got that leak and the students give up. So that's the issue.
Yeah, good, definitely.
I've got one thought I'd like to share. It's actually something Don and I were talking about earlier today, and it kind of goes to your point about looking down the road. As we're looking at putting these standards across everything, I think one thing I'd like people to keep in mind is we're very different in the United States than the rest of the world is. And we need to prepare our children to prepare for the rest of the world. So we have state-sponsored attacking, and the kids need to understand that that's going on, even though it doesn't go on here, because those individuals are coming from a totally different perspective. They're coming from how are they going to feed their families by taking it from the folks here.
Either.
I had a question for Gail, but it's kind of a comment first, that Jim built on something you said. Gail, you were talking about the team that you took to Worlds that came in last. And I know, I've been to Skills USA competitions and Destination Imagination and robotics, but you don't allow the adults to interfere. During the time, the students, either individually or as a team, need to figure things out. When your team failed, here comes the question, when your team failed, what happened as a result of that? Did they debrief? Did they learn something from it? And Jim, I'm just building off of, in the educational system, it says don't fail, right? But in real life, failure is sometimes what leads to figuring things out to go forward better, right? And I was just curious
So in the
how that
engineering
team
world,
that came,
they're taught failure is important.
Yep.
They're taught that failure is critical.
and your specific team that came in last, so
Yeah.
I was just wondering if.
So we actually had 2 teams at Worlds that year, so it was really quite interesting that we had the 5-foot team and the 2-foot team. And we had, I think we had 7 adults travel down to Worlds that year to watch the kids and to coach them off the lines. And on the way down, it's always who's taking 5-foot, who's taking 2-foot, and nobody wants the 2-foot after the 5-foot's there, right? So I said, I got 2-foot. If none of you guys want it, being the head coach, I always take the default of what nobody else wants. So I took 2-foot, and it was the 5-foot team that had troubles. And some of the industry folks were right on board with the way we educate, which was, it's okay. You debrief every single hour, every single moment. But what had happened was the student didn't make the modification they needed to the robot to win. They didn't show up. We certainly weren't going to do it for them. So it went on the trailer exactly the way they left it. And then when it came out to the playing field the way they left it, well, then they had to be able to do it with somebody else's equipment. They had to use the NASA machine shop to be able to do any of their work. And they couldn't get it done in time for it to work well enough. But I don't think you criticize the kid, or the learning process of failure was just as important as the learning process of winning.
So
And
Yeah, can I just add one thing to you, and that is, so I had a team for 5 years, and they came in the bottom for 5 years. We never won a thing.
But you had a blast.
Huh?
You had a blast.
Yeah, but out of that, I have 30 students that have their degrees in engineering or some related field in science. These were students in DC schools. We had no machine shop. My husband actually built the crate out of the wood. He got the wood from the back of the Safeway stores when they throw the crate down. And he took a tent that we had, and that's how we got the metal for the robot. But all of those students went to college. All of those, I have out of that at least 5 to 7 students who are now engineers. And when they became engineers, they posted and sent me an email saying, I am an engineer. Yeah.
Jim, 60 seconds, and then we'll
Okay.
wrap it up.
Also, in answer to your question, with Skills USA though, is if a student is going through the scenarios, and a lot of ours are stations that they're hitting, if they get to a station, our judges come from industry. They know the equipment because it's their equipment. When the student has stood there and looked at that piece of equipment for 5-10 minutes, we tell them, stop the contest, just walk in, tell them we're ending this part, and make it a teachable time. The student then goes through, because they have the expert from the company that can tell them how it's supposed to be done. So the student's going to win because they're going to learn something that evidently either they've forgotten or that their teacher didn't have that piece of equipment in their store. So teachable moments always should happen at a contest.
Thank you. I now realize we are standing between the cameraman
Get up
there
and
has.
them. And they have thousands and thousands of jobs that between now and 2020. And they say, but how can we fill them today? And I'm like, people, you start education right now in preschool. If you want people to know what's going on in the insurance industry or 21st 21st Century Manufacturers in Ohio grabbed me, and I spent most of the time talking about Skills USA, because what I do doesn't affect them, but they're all industries are dealing with this particular issue. I think the thing for you all to know is there are plenty of resources that are already available at the middle level, high school, and post-secondary level through career technical education. You know, Pepsi, Coke, whatever your favorite brand is, we're out there. We're willing to help in any way that you need and do whatever we can to support the efforts that you have in your schools and classrooms. And just know that you're not alone in this, that we're all working on it. And I think with all of the minds that are here this week, all of the input, we're gonna get somewhere fast. But you gotta remember, fast in education cycles once a year, okay? So,
13 years to get through it.
so it certainly, there's no quick fixes, but if there is anything that my organization, or I'm sure any of us can do to help move it forward, just let us know, and I'm sure we'll be happy to help.
So I have a little bit different perspective because I don't do the CTSO for today's view of what I'm looking at. Instead, we're looking at how robotics can prepare the kids for the workforce, and doing that in a way that you're taking all different walks of individuals. Sometimes you're taking the most intelligent kids in the school to do a portion of it, and sometimes you're taking the most hands-on kids in the school, because it takes many walks of life to pull that together. So I looked at it and said, what are the biggest elements that we're teaching that are not necessarily the ones that they get every single moment sitting in the classroom? And I've come up with a few of those that I want to share with you today. And the first one is problem solving. It's taking that math and science from the classroom and actually sitting down and putting it to work. And just this week, we asked the kids to go do something, and they came back and like, well, how? Well, that's Pythagorean theorem that you need to calculate that, and I want you to go put that into cutting that arc. And they're doing that. And they're doing it from the manufacturing of parts side of the house and the building of elements. They're doing it from the electronics side of the house, and then they're doing it from the programming side of the house. And I think actually all three of those have an impact on cybersecurity, because I do believe understanding electronics is critical for understanding networking. I do believe that the programming is just some of the highest degree skills you're going to need to be able to set up some defense mechanisms. And the manufacturing side, just being able to decide how you're going to rebuild machines is also very applicable. And the next area that is very important is the critical thinking. For them to be able to take and analyze small tasks by utilizing some of the techniques that they've learned, and to put it into finding the critical path for the strategic path for maximizing points and minimizing weight and utilizing the time that I have on hand. This program, the game is announced the first Saturday of the calendar year, and they have only 6 weeks from that time period to solve that problem. And they're solving a 5-foot robot problem in a short amount of time. So critical thinking is a very important aspect of being able to do that. The next area, I threw some more pictures in there just because I think pictures tell a lot of the story. And just when I put it together, I said, just driving a 2-minute game is critical thinking, because you have to at every point in time know exactly how you're going to react to that. And then programming the robot to drive it autonomously is critical thinking as well. The other piece that I think is a very big need in business today is for people to see the whole organization or the whole structure, or see the big picture. And this is a program that allows them to see it. And the way that I've implemented it so that many kids can see the big picture is we have a student leadership team. And our student leadership team is 14 different divisions. So we have the accounting department, the finance department, the graphics art department, the web design department, the manipulator programming, the driving console system programming. We have a couple of build departments. And when you give each student a piece of that, they meet for 2 hours before the rest of the team comes together, and they decide how they're managing the team. They're deciding the strategic goals. They're deciding what the task breakdown is going to be, what the time element's going to be, what the money allocated to it's going to be. And so they're actually taking on those roles that they would take on in business. And then we have a pair of students that act as the president of the team that makes the final decisions. And then as an adult, I'm really there to facilitate, to teach them how to take on those leadership roles. And I won't make a decision for them. I will empower their decisions. And if they're bad, and we have had one year that was bad, then they're not going to win. And that's really a tough thing for us to swallow, is to let them fail. We have won world championship twice, and to take a team, and we're one of the only teams in the world that has qualified to go to world every year, but to take a team and let it finish last in the world, that takes courage to allow them to fail. The next area that you've all mentioned that is very important is teamwork, learning to work together as a team and trusting the other individual with their task and allowing them to perform their task, and you standing up to your bargain and you handling your own task. So do these guys show up on time? You bet your butt. Do they finish their task? If they want to win, they do, and they don't win the world championship without finishing their task. So keeping them accountable and teaching them the tools to use to help each other know what to do and when to do it. And then I finish it off with my last element here, which is our summer camp program. Money is absolutely the biggest obstacle that we have for being able to support this program. When we first did it, I had money flowing in like there was absolutely no tomorrow. But as soon as my school district realized that, they created a division in the school district and told all the businesses they had to give the money to them and they couldn't give it to us. So that put us in a negative position. And then we've been so successful that even the school district has stopped giving us a penny. So we get a total of $250 a year for all the programs. And everything else has to come from private funding. Well, I mean, when I was over with the Lockheed woman, we hand her, lots and lots and lots of employees every year because these kids are very talented. So to overcome the money situation, we now write curriculum and teach summer camps. And we teach almost half of the summer. And we raise about $25,000 to $30,000 because that's the only way we can now fund our team. But the best piece of that is when a student rises to the level of an educator, they know what they're doing. And when they turn around and they write what they want to do, and when you see 20 students teaching like 40 students, and they're all there together,